What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. Today we're looking at 30-year mortgage rates, and looks like it's still hovering about that 6.74 area, down like 0.01%. And here we see kind of the movement kind of plateaued. I was recently looking at a chart right here. Let's look at the 5 years. Look at these rates. I want you to see the time frame. So this is from November 2020. If you recall, just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, especially if you're new here, if you recall, my thing is we bottomed here in July of 2020, right? This is the 30-year Treasury bond. We bottomed here, okay? For me, I think this was the beginning of a trend change for the bond market. I think we've had a bull market since 1981, and I think that the change has come because if you look at any time between then and now, 5 years is plenty of time. Look, 2010 to 2015, plenty of time to be able to identify any shift change, right? From here to here, this was a period of 1 year. No, like it goes up, but then it keeps going. So any 5 year period that you look, it continues the same trend. I think what we're going into is a time period of higher rates. And I think you're going to see a lot more volatility, a lot more. I think what you saw in the beginning of the 2020s is going to become a constant and more prevalent occurrence. And you're going to see the government or entities using that as an excuse for why X and Y for X, Y, and Z occurring in prices and all sorts of things. So they're going to put the blame on that for why everything is more expensive, why it's pricier. All in the meanwhile, the markets have already priced in what's coming, and I think we're early. For those of you watching, we're early, and it's just a matter of time, right, before this inevitably breaks out. And I think the reason I'm really focusing on this is because a lot of people, and I hear it a lot. They say I'm waiting for mortgage rates to come down. I'm waiting for it to come down. And a lot of people went and bought homes expecting to be able to refinance. But my question is, how are you going to refinance on a home that's potentially, it depends what price you bought it at, it's worth less than when you bought it at? You can't refinance something that's lost value. I mean, like, the banks are not going to do that. And so here is mortgage rates, right? Or since 2022, the peak was around 2022, right? Mortgage rates peaked around November. Well, that's November 2023. But what you see is that these mortgage rates, they have just plateaued. They're not really budging. And a lot of people are waiting for interest rates to come down. But I believe that if the Fed were to cut, what's to say that this is not going to spike up? Last time the Fed cut, which was 2024, and let's see, I believe it was right before the election. It might have been around this time period right here. We had mortgage rates spike up. So the opposite happened of what people were expecting. And this time around, a lot of people are saying, oh, hopefully the Fed will cut rates here soon. It'll bring everything down. People are waiting for September because that's when they think a rate cut is going to happen. Are you sure? What if we don't cut? What if we stay neutral? I do think if there's not a justifiable reason as to why we're cutting, market will sniff that up immediately, and the opposite will occur. And now you'll see bonds hike, and along with that, you're going to see 30-year mortgages also hike. And so I think that's where we are in the market. And inevitably, I think I know it seems like very simple, but sometimes things are very simple, just as they may seem. And I think we're in a time where things are going to get more expensive. And when I say things, I think it's just more the standard staples that you would need, right? I think the demographics currently, as they stand for the, let's say, the boomer generation, a lot of them are getting older, right? And a lot of them maintain a lot of the real estate wealth. And I think that as they start coming, to the end of their lifespan, a lot of those homes will be coming onto the market. And currently, the generation right now of young people, they're not really having kids. And so it puts the demographic situation into perspective, in which, what if we have an oversupply? What is that going to do to home prices, right? So I think there's a lot of questions, right, that need to be asked on what's coming. And I think that's hitting us in the next several years. I think that's coming. I recently saw a comment. Someone said in Austin, Texas, they're in their area, and shout out to you for commenting. Like the average price of a home is going for around $272, right? My question to you, who commented, what was the average price in 2022? Right at the peak, at the mania, because I know Austin was a hot spot for people to move to, and I'm seeing that there's up to 40% price drops from homes from the peak until now. I think certain areas are a lot more advanced as far as like price cuts from the peak than today, and so I actually want to go ahead and do this. Let's look at all. Where were we in 2006? So look at this. Check this out. So in 2006, so we had a nice run up in the housing market, right? 2006, we're hovering around that like 6% range, right? And it wasn't until 2008, right, when we started to see the drops. So this time around, and I know Fed started cutting rates around this time period, right, around September-ish. If the Fed does cut rates, I believe there might be an opposite impact in the direction people think this is going to go. And so I think there's a lot of, in my area, I've seen a lot of houses that are priced in, let's say, the $600,000 range, and I've seen price cuts of up to $150,000. Not selling, still not selling, right? So they're in the high 600s, now they're in the low 500s, still not selling. What does that tell you? Buyers are still not willing. That's not the price point. So lower, we're going much lower. And I think if those homes don't sell by the end of the summer, because we're rapidly approaching the end of summer, I think that come spring next year, those same houses are going to be worth a lot less. And you might even see, if they're desperate, the owners are desperate to sell, they're going to be the first out the gates with some deals, right? And if their home still doesn't sell, expect a lot lower, right? Because there's a lot of people can sense the environment, and a lot of home sellers are getting a little anxious, right? So I think that's kind of where we're at. It's almost a waiting game. Maybe everyone's kind of waiting in expectation to see what's going to happen. And I think that by the time next summer comes, there'll be a lot more clarity. So, or maybe not. People, a lot of things can happen between now and then. But I think that's kind of where we're headed. So, with that being said, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know how things are looking in your area. Give me an update. I'd love to share it with everyone else who's watching, right? Because that's what this channel is about, is sharing information. So, like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a good one, everyone.